Good afternoon and welcome to our Signworld public webinar. We are delighted to have you join us today. My name is Jeannie Borum. I'm part of the corporate team here at Signworld and I will be your host for today's session. For those who haven't experienced one of our public webinars, I'll just give you a quick overview of what to expect as far as our format for today. First, we're going to kick it off with our owners providing an overview of themselves, their business, and their background. And then we will give our participants an opportunity to ask questions in a round robin format where each of the owners will individually answer each question. So you'll receive a variety of responses and perspectives to each individual question. We'll go in order around our participants and you'll have at least an opportunity to ask a single question and may have an opportunity to ask more. But we do ask you to ask a single one each time. So with that said, let's go ahead and kick things off and have Stephanie introduce herself first.
Hi there, I'm Stephanie from Signcraft Solutions. We have been in business almost 13 years now. We are in Wake Forest, North Carolina. That's fairly north of Raleigh-Durham area. We have 15 employees. And sales projection for this year, I would say we won't quite hit the 2 million mark, but we'll get close. We're working on things other than just big numbers, and we should be in that area. Biggest customer project, Bob's wrapping one up that's been, I think it's about 125,000 for a whole bunch of different things that he's wrapping up now. We have a client that will do more than that for us per year, but that's about it. Career background, I was a full-time mom and part-time worker as an occupational therapist previous to this. But always wanted to have my own business. Felt like it would be good for the kids. I never did it while the kids were growing up. But when the opportunity arose, it was very intriguing to me. And when I met Jack, it became a reality.
Very good. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie. Mike, let's go to you next.
Yeah, Mike Voling with Georgetown Sign Company. We're in Georgetown, Texas, northern suburb of Austin, Texas. Formed as a company in June of 19, opened up my doors November of 19. I'm in 3,000 square feet. I just had my 7th employee started yesterday. 22 sales projections. You know, we started the end of last year with a stretch goal to be $1 million in bookings this year. Now it's no longer looking to be a stretch goal. It looks to be about dead on or greater. Biggest customer project of recently, I'll put 2 out here. I got my biggest order ever in January this year. That was $35,000, probably going up to $45,000 with a change order. What's fun about that is I'll be partnering with one of the largest Signworld guys who's going to do the installation, manufacturing, and everything else. So I'm just project managing it. But my biggest customer is a local electrical contractor where we're going to be doing a fleet rebrand. We were under the impression it was going to be about 45 full wraps over the course of the year. When one of my guys was meeting with them yesterday, it has now jumped up to 75 full wraps this year. So it's really starting to come together nicely in that regard. I've got a mechanical engineering degree from the University of Colorado, go Buffs. Got into transportation a long time ago in business development. I learned I enjoy building markets and businesses much more than the products themselves. Early retired at age 50, got bored, went back to the University of Texas, got my basically an MBA in entrepreneurism. And that was shortly after it ended. That's when I found out about Signworld. Jumped on that after doing all my due diligence, and I kind of hinted at it, but I'm also wrapping up my doctorate of business administration, which I should be receiving in May, June of this year. So been busy.
So I'll have to ask Jack and Ken, but I think you might be the most educated owner we've had in our network. Am I about accurate there? How many years of schooling have you had total? 16, 15, 14? What does that up to?
13, 17. The master's is a 1-year fast track program, 18. I'm probably coming up on 21, 22 years total.
It's amazing. Congratulations again. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Ben, let's go to you next.
All right. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. My name is Ben King. I run King Signs Graphics and Imaging. It's in the Minneapolis Twin Cities market. We are entering year 6. So January of 2017 was when we actually opened our doors. I'm currently in 2000, my initial lease of 2,060 square feet, but I just actually signed on to take over the 2,000 square feet next to us. So we will go into now 4,000 or right about that. I have 4 current employees, but I'm actively looking for a 5th. I'm kind of trying to coincide that with the expansion as well, which will happen later this spring. Forecast for 2022 is just about $1 million. We actually did 950 last year, but we didn't close or complete that much. So we left a lot of work in progress out. So similar to Stephanie, I'm not so much chasing additional sales dollars as just tightening up kind of lead times on production this year. My biggest client, we are part of a rebrand for Becker Furniture, a furniture company here, and it's 8 locations. And I think all of the invoices in total will be about just a little over $200,000. Before this, I was in corporate America for 15 years, mostly at Target, where I was a senior director, had a bunch of employees that worked for me, but probably like a lot of people that are either on this call or have been on these calls in the past, I wanted to become my own boss and call my own shots. And I normally wouldn't say this, but since Mike did, I'm a proud University of Nebraska Lincoln grad, so go Big Red. And anytime, I think we were undefeated all 4 years I was there against Colorado. And I was smart enough to know that after 4 years of college, that's all the education I wanted to do. So I am on the opposite end of how much schooling Mike went to.
I echo that, Ben. I can't imagine going for my master's at 50. That's fantastic. But thank you, Ben, for being here today. We appreciate you. Jack, let's go to you next.
Back in 1995, back in the days before digital printing, before the days of the internet, when we were more of a retail banner shop than anything else. I ran my operation for 10 years. I grew to 5,000 square feet with a staff of 10 and about 1.3 million in sales. I then sold that to go into a kind of a partnership arrangement with Ken, our founder, to learn his end of the business, finished buying him out 8 years ago this July. I'm now the president owner of Signworld. So when I answer questions today, if it goes to my running an operation, I'll speak from that perspective. When it goes to training and policy, I'll speak from that perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jack. And none of us would be here today without our founder. Ken, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Ken Kent, and I'm the founder of Signworld 34 years ago. I started with my own sign company here in Honolulu, Hawaii, where I still am residing. One of the biggest reasons that I decided to go with the sign business and what people would refer to as a light manufacturing business is the idea of very few employees. To make a good living in this business, to make $200,000 personal income after all expenses of the business, the benchmark is 4 employees, that's all. And as we all know today, that's the bottleneck, is finding good people. There's not enough employees out there. So if you need very few employees and at a professional level, that really helps in running your business. On top of that, it's clean and neat. It's 9 to 5, pretty much Monday through Friday. And it's repeat business. Those are the reasons I started it. And those are the reasons I'm still with it today. It's a great business, folks. Go ahead, Jean.
We're sure glad you did. Thank you, Ken. All right, time for our participants to ask their questions. So Greg, if I can ask you to go off of mute, share with the group where you're from, and go ahead with your first question, please.
Hey guys, my name is Greg. I live in New York, outside of the city, like 20 miles, but on the border of New Jersey and New York. Going through this process, and after a lot of validation calls, got to thinking, what's in a name? What are some tips of naming your business? everything, signs, graphics. What do you guys think? Like, what are the key qualities into a business name?
Great question. So if you were to go back in time and rename your business, would you have the same name you have, or what suggestions do you have for Greg? Let's go ahead and start with you, Stephanie.
I was just thinking about this the other day. If I was to go back, I might shorten it. Signcraft Solutions is kind of long. So I think that has its merits, but I wouldn't change it. Bob in his previous life was known as Quality Bob. He was part of a team with Genworth Financial, GE, and Texas Instruments. They won Malcolm Baldrige Awards, and he did a great job. So that was important, that our name represented what we call craftsmanship. And so the Signcraft came from that. We also designed it in such a way that to us, it's got a dark background. It looks a little like channel letters in the dark. It's shining. And it means something to us.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. Mike, how about you?
You know, I'm real happy with the name Georgetown Sign. It resonates, it rolls. Interestingly enough, when I was out at Discover Days with a couple of years ago, I looked online, it was available, georgetownsign.com. I was like, I bought it before I even started the business. There is an advantage from an SEO standpoint if your city matters. So like in my case, sign company, Georgetown. Georgetown Sign Company is going to naturally flow. Now, if you're in a small town that has a bad connotation or that's not your target market, perhaps a descriptive name may be better. But it's, at the end of the day, it comes down to what matters to you and find something that resonates to you.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Ben?
Yeah, I used my last name, so it took me months to come up with it. But I would not recommend using your last name, Greg, although it seems very unique and interesting. I would echo what Mike said. There are some advantages to certain names, but you could name it almost anything and still be very, very successful.
Thank you, Ben. Jack?
As I think about your question, Greg, you actually have three owners that have actually taken three different directions that we propose. One has taken what their skill set is, their value proposition. One has taken locality, and one has taken something personal. Those are really the three directions to go. My company was 3D Signs, named after three of the boys, Dennis, Danny, and David. Customers asked me, do you make 3D banners? And I said, absolutely, I can. Somehow they're going to stand out in front of all the others. So my tagline was signs that stand out in front of all the rest. So however you do it, always make sure that whatever you do, that you pick a tagline that fits to what the value proposition you have.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. Ken?
In today's business and economy, I believe that half of your customers will come to you to buy signs, and they're not even thinking about graphics. And I also believe that the other half of your customers will come to you to buy graphics and not thinking of them as signs. So I would use, Greg, both words, signs and graphics. And I would precede it with just one simple word. So it might be Greg Signs and Graphics, or Georgetown Signs and Graphics, or King Signs and Graphics. But I would use both words.
Very good. Thank you, Ken. Okay, let's go to our next participant. Kevin, if you can take yourself off of mute and share where you're from and go ahead with your first question.
Good afternoon. I'm from Ontario, Canada, actually. I'm close to Toronto. I have a few questions, actually, if you don't mind. I'm going to give you the first one, and then if my turn comes up again, I'll ask the second question. It's kind of two parts. One thing you would have liked to do from the beginning, you didn't. And also one thing you did, you shouldn't have done from the beginning.
Twofold question. I love it. All right, let's go ahead and let's start with Mike this time. Mike, going back to the beginning, one thing you should have done that you didn't, and vice versa.
Boy, the one time I go first. I did a lot of things right. I did a lot of things probably I could have started earlier. I think, and Ken will be the first one to tell you, he preaches this pretty heavily. I probably would have started doing B&I networking and chamber events a little sooner than what I did. Just I was so busy and wrapped up and getting everything else set up. And then one thing I did do, I probably started buying some used equipment too soon. So I ended up buying a used panel saw, which has been a workhorse. Picked it up for about $1,200, great deal. But I also picked up a substrate cutter as part of it from the same sign company that's going out of business, and we've almost never used it. So I ended up buying a relatively not hugely expensive. I got it for like $800, but it's a piece of equipment that takes space and we really just don't use.
So you recommend waiting until you need the equipment before you buy it?
Or you know that you're going to use it, not think that you're going to use it. Like the panel saw, we use that almost every day. It's just a used Home Depot one that cuts up and sideways, which is also a huge thing. And that's been an absolute workhorse for us. But the substrate cutter, we just found no need for it with that panel saw and everything else.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Ben, how about you?
Funnily enough, I have a panel saw that we use all the time, and I have a substrate cutter that we never use. So you're not the only one, Mike. The thing I didn't do that is, and it's a personality trait. Like I don't love building processes. And so we kind of avoided that and we got busy. And so some of my processes, I needed to do a better job of, whether it's quarterly, monthly, quarterly, whatever, just taking time to assess current processes and tweak them, update them, and then roll that to my team. And we just didn't do that right away. And now we've kind of always been playing catch up in that space. The thing that I did do early on is I understood how I wanted to go after clients, or how I wanted clients to find me, and that was through the web. And so I invested heavily in web marketing from the start. I've used it, every month since the day we've been open. I've spent the same amount on web marketing, and it's been very successful in allowing us to get as many of the clients as that we have today.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Stephanie.
I would say something that we've consistently said we wish we would have done better in the beginning is our pricing systems. Spend time on that, understand it the best you can. It's only as good as what you put into it. You can't count on Signworld to give that all to you. So spend some time with it. Make sure that it reflects your area and what you need. What we did well in the beginning, I would say we jumped into it. A lot of people take a lot of time to get into this. Maybe that's right for them. For us, when we decided we wanted to do it, it was time to just go for it and not think it over and over again for a year.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Jack?
That was a long time ago, 27 years ago. I really got to scratch my head. Taking in today's world, it's getting that internet and website up early, because it takes a time for Google to index it, unless you're throwing extra money into Google words. It's telling the world who you are and what you do. It's being willing to take on projects that you might later regret, but it's still part of the learning curve, but yet not taking on everything. So it's being discriminating on what you want to take on and what you don't. One of the things that we talk about all the time is sometimes we're so busy getting internet leads and we're chasing a stranger. And we're not spending time to cultivate the relationships that we already have, to get more business from them or referrals from them. If those people believe in you and you're not leveraging them, you're missing a big possibility of growing the business deeper, as opposed to being internet transactional. So while the internet's our best friend, it's also can be the worst enemy long-term for building the core of the business.
Thank you, Jack. Ken, going back 34 years, you have something to add? You're on mute, Ken.
Sorry. Again, in modern times, I would launch that website as soon as you can before you open, and put my focus, my energy, my attention, my money into that. And at the same time, I would ditto what Jack said and what Mike Foley said, is to get out there and network, especially with your friends and family. When I look back at my top 5 customers, they came from family and friends, people I already knew, or people who referred me quickly. So that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ken. All right, Greg, back to you. If you can go off mute and go ahead with another question, please.
Sure. Is the sign business a seasonal business? Like, do companies brand or rebrand, I don't know, more in the summer or more in the fall? And where do you see the sign industry coming out of COVID? Do you see like openings and do you see a lot of anticipation that way?
Great question. So seasonality in the business and COVID, as far as coming out of COVID in your business. What have you seen, Stephanie?
I would say we're not very seasonal. Traditionally, January can be slow. It was not this year, nor was it last year. We have put ourselves in a position where we provide solutions for our customers, and they come to us when things are hard, like COVID, and how can they get noticed? What can they do to spruce things up? Where can they use those dollars wisely? And we talk about that together, and it's made us very valuable. We didn't chase after all the really cheap things that were going on during COVID. I think it's important that everybody has a sign and something on the sidewalk to say how far apart you should be and all that. But I did not advertise for that or try and be the cheapest in that area. That was not our focus, although we did do a fair amount of it.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, seasonality, I found some seasonality, but not that much. I would also suspect it depends on where you're at geographically. This past January, I had a record month in bookings. And not only did I just beat it, I mean, I beat it by 50%. In January is a month you would normally sit there and go, okay, it'll be a little slow. December could be slow. I had a great December. The surprising time that I have found is slow is that week or two right after July 4th. And one of the other Signworld owners said it best. You're sold to a lot of small businesses. July 4th may be one of the few times they get to go disappear on a vacation. And nobody's going to make a big sign purchase when the owner can't sign off on it. But that's really been about the biggest seasonality I've seen. As far as COVID goes, I have seen a definite inverse correlation between COVID numbers goes up, business goes down. Numbers go down, business goes up. But coming out of COVID, there is a lot of companies that went out of business for one reason or another. The thinning of the herd has happened, probably could have happened more, but I think the explosion and the reemergence of small business that's going to happen coming out of this creates opportunities. And kind of like Stephanie, I took the strategic decision I was not going to go actively chase COVID-related signage. We were opportunistic. Somebody came to me and said, hey, I need a bunch of floor decals. Sure, here you go. But I wanted to keep my business moving and aligned with where I wanted it to go. So I kept my focus there, kept my energies there, and I think it paid off in the long run.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Ben.
Yeah, I mean, Mike said it. Seasonality is a little bit dependent on where you're at, where your shop's going to be located. We do see some of that in Minneapolis, just because we can't do window graphics for about 3 or 4 months, right? We can't do some other. We can, while we can bury footings below the frost line. It just, there's an additional charge to it. So sometimes clients push those jobs off till spring or try to rush to get them in late fall. But, and then at the same time, we, depending on the size of the vehicle, if we can't get it in our bay, in the summer, spring, summer, fall, we'll still get that wrap on it or those graphics on it. And obviously come winter, we can't. And then as far as COVID, yeah, I would echo what everyone else has said. Like, there is plenty of business to be had, both and a little bit of that is COVID related, and a lot of it is not COVID related. And as companies come back into the office, or even people have left one company to another, and now they're the new chief marketing officer, and they have a new vision. So we've had plenty of opportunities, projects that have come about that maybe have been indirectly tied to COVID, but we have not seen a dip because of it.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Jack?
You know, the northern operations have more of a challenge in the winter, as Ben talked about, from snow and cold. Southern operations have more of a heat issue in July, August. But remember that interior signs are year-round. So knowing that most signs are interior, you put more focus there and you work around it. The other thing is you're normally trying to book things weeks and months ahead. So the worst case scenario is if you have a slow period, you get a little bit closer to catching up, but you hopefully never catch up. So you got to build towards those seasons. You know, as far as COVID and Mike talking about businesses having to close, somebody else is taking over that building at some point. And so it's the redoing of that, or other companies buying somebody out because they're challenged and having to do the rebrand. We've got an operation in Atlanta doing almost a $3 million project of rebranding operations that they took over during COVID period. So it kind of keeps rolling right through.
Thank you, Jack. Ken?
To minimize seasonality, focus on going after the right customer, the repeat customer who has to change their signs every single month. In December, they say Christmas, in January, half off, Valentine's Day, et cetera, et cetera. So the retailers, the distributors, the franchises, the property managers who are managing high-rise office building where the average turnover rate is 20% a year. The average rate is average lease is 5 years. That means that 20% of the building is changing every year. You got to take down the old sign, put up a new sign. So focus on the customers who are the repeat customers that are not concerned with seasons.
Thank you, Ken. Kevin, you can take yourself off of mute and go ahead with your next question, please.
Thank you again. I appreciate the panel. Just this is probably for Ken. Fastest growing store you ever sold or franchise, and the slowest. How did they do their first year? Of course, I want to be the fastest one. But.
Qualify for me. Are you asking the biggest owner as far as gross sales, or the one that grew the fastest?
Grew the fastest. The first few years, let's say.
Jack, I would have to say Kevin Hall, yes.
You know, Kevin was our all-time rookie of the year. However, over the last year and a half, we have 3 operations that have exceeded 750 in the first year. All of them over $1 million second year, one of them at $2 million at the end of the second year.
Beautiful.
Okay. Numbers we've never had before.
And the slowest?
Slowest, you know, there's some that are so process driven that they're afraid to go tell people about things until they got things in line. And their first year might be 150,000, but their expectations are different. So it's really based on the individual and what you need to do in this process to figure out how you're going to fare. Talk to enough existing owners and benchmark yourself compared to them. Absolutely. Some you can't keep up with, some you can run ahead of, and some you can run on par with.
Yes, and to add to that, the slowest, we've had owners who, by intention, by design, joined us as a second, a retirement career, a one-man band operation. That was their intent from day one. So they were one person working out of their house and had very low expectations as far as total net personal income. And we're very happy in doing so. We've had several of those.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Greg, back to you. Do you have another question for the panel today?
Yeah, of course. Supply chain issues, vendor issues. How do you see it going on with getting material these days? Do you recommend having, 2, 3, 4 vendors in your back pocket? Are there certain materials that are hard to get right now that you kind of had to stock up on?
Great question. Ben, start with you.
Yeah, well, first off, from a vendor perspective, there's a couple of kind of nationwide suppliers. Signworld helps you with that. There's a preferred vendor list on the Signworld website. You'll get to know some of those right away. You'll be able to put some of their their logos on your website if you so choose. Gemini's comes to mind. They're a national, they kind of do lobby signs, if you will, and a bunch of other stuff. But you're going to want to have a 3 or 4 both nationwide vendors that you can call on for materials, and then 3 or 4 local vendors that can do projects for you, whether that's installation or fabrication. And then even, as soon as you'll start to get you might get a job where it's like, hey, I can outsource the install of this vehicle wrap, and allows my team to move on to something else. So there, that kind of list, and there are other Signworld owners in your area. So if I think back to those first, probably 6 to 12 months that I was here, it was some other Signworld owners in the Minneapolis market telling me, call this guy, leverage this vendor, that they're going to help you with that. They're going to give you a good price. As far as materials that we struggled to get, the only one that's like really just gnaws at me is the 3M dual color vinyl that they just stopped producing for a variety of reasons. And then that caused a run on the Arlon and the Avery. And so, but you don't have to worry yourself about nothing that I would tell you that would preclude you from starting a sign company. Let's put it that way. And if you are having that issue, so is everybody else. And so it's not like you're the only guy on the block that can't sell, because you can't get the material. Nobody can get it. So, you just have to work through that, move out some of your lead times if that's the case. Try to design things in different ways, or talk the client into different products if that's the case. But again, nothing that's been where I've ever for a minute said like, man, I wish I were in a different industry.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Stephanie, your perspective?
I agree. You need to have more than 3 or 4 vendors. You should have several, not because of supply chain, but because you need to have those relationships with those different companies. And if ever somebody's short on something, you can go somewhere else. You can also realize that some of those vendors are going to have better pricing on certain types of things than somebody else. So shop around. Don't hesitate to go where there's the best. Do use the preferred vendors. They are the best. You will get to know them personally. I can show up at those trade show events with Signworld, and I'm friends with those people. They've dropped in. People from the West Coast have dropped on me when they were going to the Outer Banks, and they stopped in Carolina just to say hi. That's a pretty cool relationship, and they're going to help me and give me advantages. They're going to let me know when they suspect things are going to be hard to find, so I know ahead of time. And then there are alternatives. You can always use different types of materials. If I can't find a 2x2 tube of aluminum, I can use 3x3. There's always options to adjust. You just kind of have to stay on your toes, and you'll be fine.
Thank you, Stephanie. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, supply chain has been definitely a challenge for what we're doing here. And it started with 3M. All of a sudden, their color change vinyls became hard to get or impossible to get. And then it just kind of ran through the rest of the industry. Some of our standard house vinyls that we print on became a little hard to find last year. So I invested in inventory. As inventory became available, I bought it. And now I've got a safety stop. Used to be 1 box of vinyl. Now I may have 5 or 8. But this is stuff I use on a daily basis. So if I'm out of it, I'm out of business. So I made sure to build up an inventory level that way. The big customer that we've got that we're doing all the vehicle wraps for, they picked a particular color of blue, 3M blue. 3M is having a black pigment shortage. So they have said, we're no longer making this wide variety of colors. We're now making 10 colors. And my blue was not on it. I made the conscious decision to go out and buy every roll of that blue in the country. So now I have 40 rolls of that blue. Why? Because they don't know when they're going to start making it again. And I've got 70 vehicles to wrap. But the good news is I have every roll in the country. My client can't get upset with me and go somewhere else. Why? There's nowhere else to go. I've cornered the market. But has it been a challenge? Absolutely. But it is, you figure out how to work around it and make it work.
So Mike, is it your fault that I can't get Carolina blue?
It's not Carolina blue.
That's good. I should get it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
it's 40 rolls. Is 40 rolls
suppliers.
Enough?
I'm sorry?
40 rolls enough?
It's going to be a lot of half of one color, half of another color. So it's the blue that was the hard part.
It has to be, Ken. That was all that was left. I mean, I don't think he was stopped at 40. He would have gone to 60 or 80 if somebody had jumped,
And we're talking about know your suppliers. I've got the Fellers rep, and she's looking at the inventory every day. Anything comes available, she calls me. So, Mike, there's 3 rolls out here. Okay, boom, bought.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Jack?
Before I give my answer, I'm going to introduce a couple of slideshows that are going to go on the background. No audio to them. We'll continue with questions. The first one just shows some of the operations inside and out, so you can see what operations look like. Second slideshow goes to what is a sign. Not only what can we make with the original equipment, what do we need to outsource temporarily, and then some things that you wouldn't even think of as a sign. Third slideshow goes to some of the unique projects Signworld Owners have done, the Wall of Fame, as it were. So we'll continue with questions. The bottom line with inventory right now is that there are a lot of different materials we can use. So if one doesn't work, you can alter to another. It's custom manufacturing. And so a lot of choices and options, and you need to have several suppliers as your backup to be ready for that.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. Ken, anything to add?
Nothing to add to that.
All right, very good. Kevin, I believe it's your turn next. Go ahead and go off mute and ask your next question, please.
Actually, I forgot to put my hand down. That's why I had asked my questions actually.
Okay, very good. So no other questions from you?
No, I'm okay.
All right, let's go back to Greg.
Are there any sign publications or graphic publications that you guys read in order to get industry knowledge, like any magazines or anything like that I can get my hands on?
Very good question. So let's add to that question slightly. So thinking back to when you started your business, how did you learn about the sign industry and build your knowledge? And to Greg's question, what publications would you recommend? Let's start with you, Stephanie. Stephanie, are you muted still?
I am. I was just grabbing Sign Builder magazine, Signs of the Times, and of course my all-time favorite, Sign Craft. All really good magazines, and there's plenty of other industry things. There I am, by the way. There's a lot of publications out there, and I would definitely peruse through them. It'll inspire you. It keeps you abreast of what's going on, etc. And was there another part of that question I missed?
Just when you first got started, how did you educate yourself and become comfortable in the sign business overall?
100%. If you follow what Signworld does, it will make a difference. You've got different groups that you can join. We have the added advantage of being able to do Zoom calls instead of phone calls that we did previously 12 years ago back in the olden days. You'll get to know people. You learn from other people and what they're doing in their businesses. Follow the plan and it's easy. Go to the conferences and it's easy. I still learn things every time I go. I totally enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to being there in a couple of weeks.
Very good. Thank you, Stephanie. Mike?
Yeah, I think Stephanie hit the magazines just fine. The best way I learned to learn about the business and the market and all that is obviously you got the Signworld training, which is invaluable. And the weekly mastermind groups are incredibly valuable. In fact, I would almost, they may or may not agree with this, but I would almost say they're perhaps the most valuable part of the training and the ongoing support. Here I am 2.5 years in later, and we're still going hard and strong. We share information freely with each other. But the most important way I learned about the business all resulted from the first hire I made. And if there's any takeaway I would take away from this as an attendee, that first hire you make is so critical and important. I hit a home run. I've got a great guy. He's going to be my general manager at some point. And his knowledge of the industry was helpful. I'd have a customer come in, or I'm the internet lead. I'd go back to him and go, Ryan, how do I do this? Walk me through this. What's involved? And you should be hiring as an initial sign maker a huge resource for you. And you need to do a thorough brain suck in a good way and try and absorb that knowledge. And you can't do it all at once, but as projects come in, educate me, talk me through it, walk me through how this goes together, walk me through why this is constructed the way it is. And from that, you're going to learn so much about the sign industry. And as you get involved in it, you're going to understand the market in terms of where pricing is and so forth. That's just business 101. I don't care what business it is. But the sign specific knowledge, you're going to learn about it in training, but your first hire, that sign maker, is critical and crucial.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Ben?
Sorry about that. Yeah, and I think that the magazines, I won't, the same ones that Stephanie mentioned are the ones that I will occasionally peruse, and they get delivered here. My team looks at them, will probably even know a little bit more than I do it now. And then as far as that first hire is invaluable, that doesn't mean that if you swing and miss, you can't still be successful, because I swung and missed and then backfilled them with a person that did work for me for a year and a half. And then that relationship kind of, we outgrew that. And so I'm on to different employees now. But I would say the thing that it's already been said, I'll just reiterate, the mastermind groups are invaluable. That camaraderie that you can lean on somebody. That the strength of Signworld, I tell everybody that I talk to on the phone, is you have a Rolodex of 400 of a headquarters of people, and then 400 owners that will answer your phone call, will help you out. And some of those people are then in your mastermind group that you can then talk to on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, whatever that is. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ben. Jack?
A couple areas not mentioned yet. The International Sign Association is a great resource for information. Many Signworld owners have joined their state sign association. Most states have a sign association that you can become a member of, and some have leveraged a lot of business and projects from those. While we used to have a lot of ongoing training, we've enhanced that tremendously this year with, there's more training sessions than you'll ever have time to participate in. So it's really immersing yourself as much as you can. The information's all there. You just got to commit the time and effort to learn them.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. Ken, anything to
add a little something there?
Please do.
So Jack mentioned the State Sign Association. I strongly encourage you, if you decide to join the business, to join it. I belong to the Texas State Sign Association at the recommendation of another Signworld person. Here are two things that alone have made it worth its while. In the beginning of the shutdown, their attorney came out with an opinion letter showing how we were considered an essential business. So we were able to get back to work in the office 2 days at the beginning of all that. That was huge. The other thing is, this past summer, they put out an advisement that most sign companies were viewing sales tax on installations a certain way, which is the way the Sign Association's attorney was reading it. Several sign companies, including a Signworld company, got audited by the state and interpreted it much different than the way any of the lawyers had. And the Texas Sign Association put out a notice to all its members saying, if you're not taxing installation services, we know it reads like it should be tax-free, stop doing it. And so that notice that went out to all the Sign Association members really gave valuable guidance. So if they weren't already following it correctly, they could. So those two things alone dwarf that $700 investment so far for 2 years.
Very good. Thank you. Ken, anything to add?
If you stay involved with the Signworld family, you're bound to make new friends, good friends, long-term friends who have the same goals and aspirations that you have. My best friends are all in the Signworld family.
Very good. Thank you, Ken. Greg, would you like to ask another question?
Actually, I think you guys really hit the nail on the head. We're doing good.
All right, very good. Let's give Kevin one more time. Kevin, do you have another question for the group before we conclude today?
That's perfectly fine. I'm going to actually go visit one of your stores here in Mississauga, Ontario, Fabio, if I'm not mistaken. So I have an appointment with him at 10. So I said, I would love to come and see your establishment and see what you're doing. Apparently he does from A to Z. He says there is no signs that I cannot do. So he sounds like a great guy. He gave me a lot of information the first time we spoke, and I'm going to go visit him tomorrow.
Wonderful. Well, please tell Fabio we said hello.
Absolutely.
All right, very good.
And by the way, I'll be in Texas. I'm going to join Georgetown. You're in Texas, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to be hopefully in North Dallas. I don't know where exactly you're going to be.
Yeah, it's about 3 hours north of me.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of good Signworld guys up in the Dallas area. Go see Roger Carroll.
Good to you. Roger?
Cowtown Graphics.
I will. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very good. Ken, any closing comments for the group today?
Nothing to add. I think we've covered everything very well.
Very good. Jack, any closing comments for the group?
A question I'd ask each of the Signworld owners, as you are talking to the people that are here at the webinar, the ones that are going to listen to the recording, but also ones that you talk to in validation calls. What advice would you give to somebody that's trying to figure out if this is right for them, how they pull the trigger, how they get off of I'm not sure if I'm done yet with investigation, or if I am ready, how do I do it? Thoughts for those final stages of that. Stephanie?
Wow. Just do it. It may not be right for you, so you do have to kind of decide if it's something you're willing to work at. It will take some work. It will require you to be out of your comfort zone, but you've got support. You've got people that are going through the same things. If it's just a matter of being nervous, but your gut says it feels good, go for it.
Ben, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I always tell people that, if you want to start your own business, I always bucket it problems into kind of two buckets. Like, is this an issue or a concern that I have because I'm going to be a business owner? Or is this a concern or an issue that I'm going to have because I'm going to be a sign business owner? And so if it was I knew I wanted to start my own business. So anything, whether it's hiring or firing or any of that, I knew that was going to be a problem or an issue or a thing that I'm going to have to deal with no matter what I went into. So I really focused on what were the things that made me nervous about owning a sign company. And what I will tell you is that Stephanie just said, it's going to take hard work. It's going to take discipline. It's going to take you, the person. But I always looked at that as a positive. This isn't luck. You're not going to fall backwards into a huge contract and the day one, you're going to have nothing but cash flow. No, it's probably not going to happen that way. But you have the support through the Signworld Association, through the other owners to be successful at it. And they will help guide you, have you work through some of those pitfalls that happen in year 1, in year 4, in year 5, in year 10. Guys that are 10 years in Signworld still reach out to Signworld to say, hey, I'm looking at expanding my space from 6,000 to 10,000 square feet. What should I be looking at? And there's still somebody within the association that can help you, even though you're 10 years in and uber successful. So that's how I look at it, that association is there. Those other owners are there to help you be successful. And if you want to, this is a great kind of business to be in as a business owner.
Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I got a few. First is, when you start a Signworld business, you're truly starting a business that's yours. If you're buying a franchise, I had a friend of mine say it best. When you're buying a franchise, you're buying a general managership. They're telling you how to do things, how to run things, and thou shalt not deviate from that. They have their recipe book, and that is the Bible, and thou shalt follow the Bible. Signworld is a business alliance. You get to name it what you want. We talked about that earlier. You get to run it the way you want. You get to choose what you want, how you want it to run. You get to choose, I want this customer, I don't want this customer. I want this type of customer. These are all business decisions you as the owner get to make. So one thing you need to do is do an introspection on yourself. Is my makeup such that I need that cookie cutter? Or do I want to run a business that's mine and I can really craft and shape it in the way I want it? So that would be the first thing I would ask anyone. The other thing is, as you're going to do due diligence, ask them, and I think everyone's going to give honest opinions when you talk to them. What are the pros? What are the cons? The normal stuff. I know one of the questions I asked everyone is, how did you handle the financial crisis when everything went belly up? And I got some really interesting responses on that, because I knew at that point, hey, we're in the summer of 19, things are great. Something's bound to happen. Little did I know it would be COVID. But one of the consistent comments I got from those who had been around long enough was the lack of an ongoing royalty, the lack of the marketing fund, and all that knocked some of my competitors out of business and allowed me to stay in business. That to me was a huge draw. But when you're on the phone with everyone, ask them, hey, what do you think of your competition? Do you see your fellow Signworld companies in the area as competition, or is it more friendly? In my case, if I have an issue, I can call up any of the Signworld people here, reach the owner, and work on it. One of my biggest partners is Kevin Hull with Texas Custom Signs. He's does a lot for me. So find out about those relationships between the Signworld companies. I know that was a concern of mine. Why would somebody in my business alliance who's close by help me? Well, the reality is, by helping you, they also help themselves. And they all were in the same shoe. When I started off, right before I signed the paperwork, I went down and visited with Helen McKinstry at Saber Sign. Brought my wife down there for a second visit. When we left there, she looked at me and goes, Mike, if you don't do this one over another opportunity I was looking at, you're stupid. Challenge accepted. I had to go do it. But you're going to find that there's a wealth of information out there. Find out what matters to you. What are your biggest concerns? Test those with their due diligence calls. Find also your optimistic assumptions and test those. In other words, hey, I think Kevin, you mentioned about growing fast. Is it possible to go to 1 million in 3 years, as an example? Well, I believe I'm going to do that. And I wasn't sure I could be able to do that. Is it possible to work out of whatever your biggest assumptions, both positive and negative, are? Test them. That's how you're going to find out if it's for you.
Jane?
Well, in closing, first, we'd like to say thank you so much to Mike, Stephanie, and Ben for taking time out of your busy days to participate in today's session. We really appreciate you. And to our participants, we appreciate you joining today, and we look forward to the continued discussions and conversations to validate if this is the next chapter in your life to join the Signworld family. But for today's session, we appreciate your time, and we look forward to speaking to you again in the future.